Hello, I'm Matt, and this Loxley Quality Time tutorial is to help you with this painting, The Sky's the Limit, from the Cantisso collection. If you haven't already watched our techniques tutorial videos, please have a look at them before starting your project. They give you some valuable information about painting with the quality time range and help you get the most out of your quality time. This video contains specific information about your chosen painting, but we assume that you're already familiar with the general techniques covered in our tutorial videos. The Sky's the Limit features some beach huts on Mudderford Sandbank near Christchurch, Dorset, on the south coast of England. These cute little buildings nestling in the sun-soaked sandy grass are famed for their outstanding views of the sea and the Isle of Wight. Today, they have been developed from swimming retreats into summer dwellings, each with their own individual style. I have added a girl reaching up towards her kite to this scene, as it is a popular sight on sandy beaches. Right, I'm starting with the sky here, and there is a technique video on painting skies, which gives you more information. I'm using the larger of the two brushes and long, gentle, horizontal brush strokes with this pale blue that I've mixed using 60% white and 40% light blue. I'm just working my way down the canvas. It's a good idea to start at the top and then you're working away from the wet paint. At this first stage it will be a little patchy, but that's quite okay. The patchiness will disappear at stage 2, and there's quite a bit of cloud in this sky here, so I'm just painting round these cloud areas because the white is more transparent than the blue, so it's harder to paint over the blue areas. So by leaving it just the plain canvas here, I can go in with the paler colour next. Be very careful not to go onto the kite here, so just work around the outlines. You can cut in with the brush at any angle and then just smooth it out horizontally. So if your brush strokes finish off in that direction, looks nice and even. Just working my way down. As you come down to the horizon, if you add a little bit more white to the mix, because the sky is always paler towards the horizon. Notice I'm applying the paint quite thinly, not putting it on too thick, so spreading it out nice and even. And I'm going to keep going with this sky. It's important not to break off till the whole sky is complete. Another cloud here, and then there's a little bit of blue sky showing through the kite at this point here. So nice gentle brush strokes. Mixed a bit of white in with my original blue colour. Be careful not to go over the outlines here. And this way I've got it paler towards the horizon, which is what I want. Getting a bit paler here. A lot of this patchiness disappears on stage 2 of the painting. So I'm just carefully cutting along the roof lines here, so I don't get the blue onto where the roof of the beach huts is. And again, still working around these cloud areas and getting a bit darker as we're coming back up here. Methodically working away at it, a bit more white in, and then you can blend it in like this. Pleased how this sky is coming together. Now while I've got this mixed, I'm going over the edge of the canvas. Loxley were the pioneers of clean edge canvases with no staples or pins in the side. And this way, even if you don't frame the picture, it still looks finished, even though you haven't framed it. When your painting's finished, the canvas looks finished off. Just nice gentle strokes around the edge there. Keeping the canvas like this for the camera, but you can move it if it's easier for you. So it's just a continuation of whatever colour you're using on the front of the canvas. Just go around the edge and that just finishes it off nicely. I'm now going to do the clouds. It's mostly white with a tiny bit of blue, and you can put the clouds on a bit thicker so it's got a bit of texture as well. And while I've got this pale blue, I'm just doing some of the water down here. So this is the sea that you can see beyond the beach huts here and here, and between the hair there of the girl. Careful not to get it onto the huts themselves. So that's my sky finished at stage 1, and as I mentioned earlier, it is a bit patchy at this stage, but that's fine. So I've done along the buildings here, and there's the water in the blue as well. I'm now going to go on to the huts. I'm going to start with the 2 white huts. For these 2 huts, I'm just going to use pure white paint with a tiny bit of blue in there, just to give it a bit of texture. And I'm running in the same direction with my paintbrush as the boards go. So I'm following nature's direction. So if you imagine the boards of wood lying this way, then that's the direction of the brush strokes. Sometimes you can get the hair lines in the paint and that looks like grain in the wood. Just a tiny bit of blue in there. There is actually a competition, a yearly competition at Mudderford where they judge which is the nicest beach hut. People enter the competition and open up their huts for people to view. The judges come round and decide on the best hut for that year. Just a bit of fun for the beach hut owners as well. I've done a bit bluey white where the shadow is here, and then for the rest I'm just doing pure white. Gives it a bit more character when there's a tiny bit of blue in there. Okay, so I'm now working on these blue huts, cutting along the edge of the wood here with my larger brush, and then finishing off the brush strokes in the direction of the boards again like I did with the white huts. It's important not to go over the lines. I'm just carefully working along these edges here. Nice soft gentle brush strokes around the windows. I'm just painting these how they are in the photograph, but you can actually add things to them. So you could add a bit of bunting or a flag to the beach huts, decorate your own hut. Be interested to see what you come up with. If you paint these as individual, this little hut sticking off the edge here, paint it separately and then it'll show in the painting around the edge a little bit there. And I'm across to this blue one, again cutting down the edge. Want a nice crisp edge to it, and bringing the paint across and around this round window. This is what I find so relaxing about quality time, is that you can't rush it, you have to slow down, and just the gentle brush strokes, so soothing. Cut down this edge, and this edge here. So that's with the bit of the hut going back there. And now with the small brush, I'm just doing the blue bit inside the window here. So with the darker blue, the bottom bit, and then just with a bit of white added to make a paler blue for the blind at the top of the window here, like so. I'm now painting the hut roofs, and I've mixed this colour, this dark grey colour, using about 60% white and 40% dark brown. And again, I'm just using the small brush because it's quite a detail area, cutting along these lines, try not to overlap onto the sky. If you paint them as individual roofs and use a slightly different mix of paint for where it meets another roof like this one here, so I'll show you in a minute. And then I'm finishing the roof for the brush strokes going down the angle, the same angle as the roof is running. If you imagine rainwater, that the angle that would run, the brush strokes go in that, finish off in that direction. And this little roof here, just take your time, no hurry, and around the edge there. With a slightly darker colour, I'm just doing the edge of the roof here, so it stands out a little bit. And then the roof going up for the next one here. So by mixing a slightly darker colour, it doesn't merge with the roof next door, which is quite important. You see why you need the small brush for this, because it's more intricate. The record price for one of these beach huts ever achieved was $165,000, which is a lot of money for basically a one-room house. Although some of them have got sleeping quarters upstairs and some running water. Just evening the paint out here. So again, the brush strokes in the direction that the water would run off if it was raining, and it looks more normal. And then just a little bit darker for the edge here, nice and steady. And then this edge. So just finishing off this edge slightly darker. And again at stage 2 it'll be less patchy. I'm now painting this door, and I'm using the small brush so I can get the detail, and this pale blue mixed with 60% white and 40% of the blue. So it's mainly white. I'm keeping to the shape of the doors, so following these panels, and my brush is going in the direction of the wood like this. Keep loading your brush and just using the tip of it, so the tip of the hair is just touching the canvas. Nice and gentle, and there's the door coming together now. For this middle, I'm just mixing a little bit more white, so these middle panels are a bit paler. And while I've got the blue, I'm just doing a couple of lines of the curtain inside the door here, like that. Okay, so I'm now doing these shutters over the windows, and I'm using the small brush and this grey colour, made of nearly all white with a very small amount of dark brown. Careful not to get it onto the blue. Always finish in the direction of the grain. Painting around this little boy here, around his hand, and there's a little bit on the door there. Then we're across here to this next hut. There's some bars over these shutters, but they will show through. And they're across here, just cutting along the edge, and then finishing off with horizontal brush strokes Doesn't matter if the colour mix varies a little bit, like on here. So I'm getting a few lines which looks like the natural grain in the wood. That's my shutters done. So I'm now doing this wall using a grey mixed with mainly white with a tiny bit of the dark brown. And I'm going to take it over the edge of the canvas like this. And then while I've got this colour mixed, I'm just doing a bit of the detail on the horizon here, where you can see the headland out there and across here. A bit patchy there where you can see the land. So I'm now going to paint this child here. I'm going to start with the skin. So I've mixed this pink flesh colour using mostly white with a tiny amount of the red. The red's quite a strong colour, so always mix it on the paler side and just brush all the excess paint out. Don't want it too thick. And then for the face, you'll see that the eye shows through, and you can paint that in later. Quite obviously I'm using the small brush here because it's quite detailed, intricate. And the hair bobble in the girl's bunch is pink as well, so I'm using that. Oh, I've got this colour. Then over to left, there's two children sort of hiding down by the grass here, their faces and arm. Now I'm going to go on to the hair of the girl. I'm using the lighter of the two browns for the girl's hair, again with the small brush, and you can paint in some of these loose strands of hair just with the very tip of the brush. And then the ponytail, so following the direction the hair's going, you get these little strandy bits, very fine brush strokes. I'm doing these two children over here with yellow hair, just so they don't get lost and they stand out a bit more. Now with the small brush, I'm doing the dots on this girl's dress, and I'm just using a well-loaded brush, so dip it regularly in the paint and just the very tip of the brush like this. So you're just getting nice little but very definite dots of paint. It's going on quite thick. Remember not to paint all of them, so you're just doing selective ones. You're going to have to do blue dots and yellow dots in between. Coming in with the blue dots, so the same with just with the very tip and quite loaded with paint like this. And now for the yellow dots. So you're doing them in between the blue and red. Try and get them evenly spaced, and again keep loading the tip of the brush. There's no need to paint the white of the background of this dress. You can just use the canvas, the white of the canvas. There, nice colourful. Okay, so I'm now doing the soffits and around the windows on these beach huts. And this is just with pure white, and I'm putting it on quite thickly with the small brush, just going over any of these little blue areas that have strayed onto the soffit and the roof there. So very delicately, little gentle brush strokes. Keep loading because the white paint is quite transparent, so you need to put this on quite thickly like this. You see this line here, that's it. And then just working your way across these other areas. A bit white on the door there, and this round window frame, like a porthole. You can go over these again at stage 2 to make them stand out a bit clearer. Right, I'm now using the larger brush to paint the sand, and I'm doing horizontal brush strokes as the sand lies flat like this. And it's mainly white with a tiny bit of yellow. You can leave it on quite thickly in places, and you're just working your way across. Looking at the photograph, you'll see that there's definite areas of sand between the grass, and that's what I'm painting in here, like this. So for the sand, you're working in this direction, like the sand dunes where the sea wind has blown the sand up. Keep mixing a bit more paint, a bit yellow there, so I'm just adding a bit more white. Now for the grass, I'm just adding a little bit more yellow, and it's a bit more brighter colour, and I'm doing the brush strokes in the direction of the grass, so like it's standing up. There is a technique video on painting vegetation which might give you some help on painting grass. But if you follow the direction it's growing, it looks more real, more natural. Now for the grass at the edge here, I've actually done it coming into towards the picture, and on the photograph it's going the other way. And I've done this for a reason, so that your eyes focus on the centre of the picture. It's not detracting. So the grass at the edges is pointing in to the central point of the picture, which is the girl here. I'm managing to do this all with the larger brush, just different brush strokes. Doesn't matter if it goes a little bit onto the buildings, because the grass you'll see from the photograph does overlap as well. So I'm now painting the kite at stage 1, and this area here of the kite is white, but just to give it more character I've added this tiny bit of yellow. Can actually just put a bit more yellow in here, because white can't really pick up the colour, so it doesn't look very bold. I'm using the small brush because of the detail here. And then I'm going on to the yellow areas of the kite. It's a very colourful kite. And I've added a tiny bit of red just to make it a deeper yellow. So keeping very carefully to the outlines. You can go over this at stage 2 to make these colours stand out a bit more. And just the tail of the kite. Tiny brush strokes just with the tip of the brush like this. Now for the orange bits, which is yellow and red mixed together. So I'm going from the palest colour to the darkest colour like that. Now for the red, these tiny little areas here. Careful not to go onto the sky. I've missed a little bit here, which is actually yellow. So I'll go back in with the yellow. Blue yellow down this edge. That's my kite done. Right, that's stage 1 of my painting completed. The whole canvas has been painted. A lot of the patchiness will disappear at stage 2 when you apply more paint because it's transparent. You can build it up in layers. Right, so I'm now on stage 2. I'm doing the sky, starting with the sky at stage 2 here. Again, using the larger of the 2 brushes. And you're just going over the same areas. So working around the cloud areas. And you'll see that the paint's much more smoother. There's less lines and streaks in it showing in the finished picture. And the colours are stronger. Just working around these cloud areas. A bit paler towards the horizon again. So it's just a repeat of stage 1, but on top of the blue sky already. And then the cloud areas will come back in with the white. So carefully working around the kite again. Doesn't matter when you're trying to get the detail about which direction the brush strokes, but then if you just finish them off horizontally. Some of the cloud areas here. This is just the pure white, putting it on a bit thicker so that you can get a bit of the texture of the cloud. Working my way across this sky like this. Keep loading your brush, never let your brush run dry. One of the secrets to successful painting. If it gets too dry, it starts to take paint off the picture. You can spend as long as you want to on this, just building up the layers, building up the colours. The more time you spend on it, the better result you'll get. Like anything in life, I suppose. Not to rush it. So now just doing stage 2 of the water, the sea in the distance here. With using the small brush, little horizontal brush strokes with this pale blue. And then I'm going to go in with the white, just pure white, for the boat that's on the water here, and the sail, like that. So now I'm doing stage 2 of the huts here, and on this one I'm just putting in these very pale blue lines just so the boards show up like this. They're just nice, gentle, long brush strokes. It's almost white, 98% white and 2% blue, the pale blue, which gives it a bit more character. I'm not going over the door frame here, put a little bit on the door there, and then just with pure white to strengthen the door frame and around the window. And I'm going on to the other hut and just strengthen these with pure white areas where the sun's shining. Apply the paint quite thickly, give it a bit more texture. Now with the small brush I'm doing this far hut, and I've mixed this colour, mainly white, but with a little bit of green as well as blue, so that it gives it this turquoisey look. So I'm painting it over the blue, but it's now this lovely turquoise, which is more like the photograph. I'm putting the paint on quite thick, careful not to get it onto the soffits here and onto the window shutters or their frames, and then just finishing the brush strokes horizontally. And you can leave lines in it like it's the boards of wood, and then down the side here like that, and then just these little hut at the front and round the side. And this one here I'm just going to paint in some of these lines just with the tip of the small brush, just with pure blue, and I'm not loading the brush too much just so that they run a bit faint, some of these lines, so they're not too bold. It's just an impression of the wooden boards, just gives it more character. Follow right through like this, and then just mixing a little bit of white to soften them up a bit here. So you can actually strengthen or weaken the colour by just adding more of the same to make it stronger, or a bit of white to make it not so powerful. Just using the very tip of the brush, nice even brush strokes, and again I'll soften some of these up with a bit of white. You don't need to worry if it goes too bold, and you can just do what I'm doing here with the white. Now I'm going to go with the pure white and just strengthen the window frames and the soffits on these 2 blue huts that I've painted. So this is just pure white. I'm applying the paint quite thickly, and then for the windowsills, top and bottom, and the little round window, around the door and the actual door itself like this, and then the soffits again here. That's my huts done. So I'm just doing stage 2 of the roofs here. This is just a pale grey using mainly white with a small amount of dark brown. It's just a slightly different shade from the previous one, which is brilliant because it gives it more character. You can actually add a bit of darker into it. Get rid of the excess off your brush and then just blend it in like this. So I'm just doing stage 2 of this door. Again, being very careful not to overlap it and keeping to these areas. So it's just making the colours a bit bolder. And again, a bit more white for in the middle of these panels. Add a bit onto the curtain there. Just using a bit of the paler of the two blues just to put a bit more character onto these doors here, like so. So I'm now doing stage 2 of these shutters, and it's just building up the grey colour. So it's just a bit more bolder. Again, you can vary the mix so to show the grain of the wood, and even put some little like knot holes and cracks in the wood. I was using the dark brown to do those little knot holes, and then I'm going to put the bar on the window with dark brown. Just the tip of the brush quite heavily loaded, and again for the door. While I've got the dark brown, I'm just doing some of the detail on this end hut. I'm just very faintly with the very tip of the brush just putting these lines where the corner and the joining pieces go. It's just really faint lines, and again on the corner here like that. I'm now going to go onto the wall. So I've mixed a slightly darker grey than the first time, and I'm not painting the whole wall, just with the tip of the small brush, just picking out selected stones. So it looks like a real stone wall like this. And then just with the pure dark brown, just doing a few little lines and dots here like that. Give it more character. That's the stone wall finished at stage 2. Just doing stage 2 of the girl here, and just mixed up another pink colour just so it's strengthening these colours on the face. You don't need to do the dress again because the spots are nice and clear. Just that the pink's quite a washy colour, so just build it up like that. I am going to do the eye of the girl just with the light brown. A very tiny speck of light brown for the eye, and just above the eye, the eyebrow and the nose there. That's all I need to do for the stage 2 of the girl. So again with the kite on stage 2, I'm starting with the paler areas first. So first of all the white, like that, and then onto the yellow. So these colours are showing up better now, more bold second time round, keeping to the edge. Then the orange, just adding a bit of red. So again, just with the tip of the brush, filling in the colour there. You can add just a tiny bit of red just down the edge, just to make it look more interesting. And then I'm onto the red itself now, like this. So just these little areas. By leaving a bit of orange in the paintbrush, you get this sort of two-tone red effect, which makes it look more realistic because it's actually transparent, the kite. So I'm now using the small brush still. I'm using dark brown just for the edge of the kite. So very small, thin lines with a well-loaded tip of the brush. This just gives it a bit of extra character, makes it stand out. But also if you look at the photo, it's got like dark bands around the edges. So just work my way around here, little like pencil lines along the top here. Keep the brush loaded, keep looking at your photo, just like this. These kite tails, keep dipping your tip of the brush in the paint. You don't want it to run dry. That's the kite done. Now with a very steady hand, I'm going to do the string of the kite. Doesn't matter if it breaks up in places, just do the impression of the string going up like that. So I'm now putting in the grass. I'm using just pure green with the very tip of the brush, the small brush. Keep loading it, and just very little gentle brush strokes. So you're following the outlines that are there and referring to your photograph where the grass is. You can go over these a couple of times if they don't come out very bold to start with. Also I'm using some light brown in there, but if you do it without cleaning your brush then it just mixes with the green. Looks more interesting. Some of these are lying down a bit dead. I'm mixing the green and brown, but not in the pot, so they're not contaminated in the pot. Lift your brush slightly as you come away, so it goes thinner at the end of the blades of grass. You've got your brush practice area for practicing these brush strokes as well. Just take your time, no rush. And you'll notice from the photo that a lot of the blades of grass are white, which I'm going to come in with some white in a minute to show you. And then there's these grass strands further away here. This is just pure white. I'm applying the paint quite thickly. This makes it look more interesting with white strands in there as well. You can go over some of these strands again, particularly the paler ones later on, after you've done the shadows. That's the, I've just completed the grass. So you see the different strands of green and some brown in there and the white, which when it's dried it goes quite transparent, but we can come back and touch it up later and when you've done the shadows. So I've done the whole of stage 2 complete. So everywhere's had 2 coats of paint and you see the colours are much more vibrant and it's less patchy. So I'm pleased how that's come out. Now starting on stage 3, the shadows, and I'm using the larger of the 2 brushes here. There is a technique video on painting shadows, which I recommend that you have a look at before doing this on your final picture. You can use your smaller brush as well if you want to. So you're referring to your guide where the shadows are. And I've mixed a bit of water with this shadow paint, so it's not so bold, like this. So down this side of the building. So you've got some quite big shadows from the hut next door on a lot of these huts. Just drawing the shadow on here freehand. You can go back over any of these shadows and strengthen them later if you want to. Going over the window there, and this one's quite a big shadow. Just cutting down the edge here, covers up the side and across part of the roof here. I'm going to go back in and strengthen this shadow. I've got it a bit too watered down, but okay for this, blocking it in there. Down the edge of the building. I love this stage, it brings the whole picture to life, it gives more dimension. And then with this smaller brush, just doing some of the finer shadows down the edge of these boards here. It really brings out the picture. Down some of these edges here, and inside the windows here, and down the edge of the door, like this. And under the roof, all these are marked on your instruction guide in blue. And here, and then on the back of the girl. I've marked the direction of the sun on the instruction guide so you can see which way the shadows will fall. Some of these blades of grass I'm painting round, particularly the white ones. This gives it the dimension on these windowsills here. Makes them 3D, and then you can just keep coming back and strengthening the shadow. Easier to go that way. Once it's too dark, it's hard to lighten it. And then you can get your depth on these, like these sandbanks and things. So it makes them 3D. I'm painting around some of these white areas you can see of where I've done the white blades of grass. So I don't want to lose them. Just going in a bit darker here now. This is the shadow paint without any water in it. You get much more contrast. And then this is the darker again. So wanting some of these blades of grass to really stand out. So I get more contrast with the shadows if these are white. On this area here, I'm going to put some shadows in, darker on top of the fainter shadows. So it's the shadows of the grass on top of the other shadows. And then just keep working your way across in between these grasses. That's my shadows completed. I've gone over the shadows under the hut roofs here, and this big shadow here, I've gone over that again so it stands out more bold. And I've done a lot of shadows in the grass here between these blades of grass, and with the watered down shadow to give the dimension of these sand dunes, gives a bit more depth to it. It's not just all flat now. And you see here where I've put the shadows under the blades of grass. This bit here I've gone a bit too dark, so I'm going to lighten that up when I'm doing the highlights with some more blades of grass on top of the shadow. So I'm now on stage 4, the highlights, and I'm going to start in the middle here with this girl. So it's just a small brush, the very tip of the brush, and just a very small dot just where the sun is catching, like this here. There is a video on highlights, technique video, which I recommend that you look at. So I've got this, just strengthen this highlight here, and then on the hair as well, just like where the sun is catching it. Again, just using the small brush and the very tip of it, so it's just to make this look like glass. So just 2 very thin lines like that. I'm just picking out just a few little areas here, just a tiny little dot makes such a difference. I'll do another one on the door here, like that. I'm now going to do some blades of grass in the white and try and make this look not so dark. So just very fine lines like this. This is where I got carried away with the shadows, made it a bit too big and dark. I'm just putting on the paint quite thick because it's going over a darker colour. And then I'm even just going to paint some of this shadow out and just blend it in a bit. So you can see actually getting rid of some of the darkness, turning it back into sand or non-shadow. Just keep going till you're happy with your result. So different angles of this grass. I'm just doing some little highlight dots here, and I'm going to do one up there, just where the sun's catching. Alright, so that's the stage 4 completed and the picture finished, and all the highlights done. And I'm pleased with this dark area here. I've managed to soften up with using these white strands of grass painted in, and I've done the highlights on the girl. Then across on the buildings I've just put a few little highlights on the roof here, just a tiny speck, and up on the kite here, and across here just a few little tiny specks, another one on the roof there, and on the wall here. Very pleased with this picture. I've enjoyed this painting. Good luck with yours. Goodbye.